3 years ago, one evening, my boyfriend and I decided to go to a movie as the last stop on our date. Due to work commitments, our dinner ended late, and by the time we arrived at the theater, it was already deep into the night. We had picked a late-night showing of a less popular romantic movie, scheduled to start at 10:45 p.m. The theater was almost empty, with just the two of us in the large screening room. As the movie began, we were quickly absorbed in the story. About halfway through the film, a middle-aged man suddenly entered the theater. His presence immediately changed the atmosphere, making it feel eerie. The man stood by the steps at the entrance, looking around as if searching for something. He then slowly made his way to a seat in the front row. However, instead of watching the movie, he kept fiddling with his phone, and every so often, he would turn around to glance at us. Even though he was sitting at a distance, his strange behavior made me feel extremely uneasy. After about 20 minutes, the man suddenly stood up and started walking toward us. My heart leapt into my throat. I had no idea what he was planning to do. He paused briefly at the end of our row, then continued up the stairs and sat a few rows behind us. I could feel his eyes on us, even though he was trying to watch us subtly. At that moment, I suddenly felt the urge to use the restroom but was hesitant to leave my boyfriend alone with the creepy man behind us. My boyfriend noticed my hesitation and quietly reassured me that he would keep an eye on the man and ensure everything was okay. Reluctantly, I left my seat and quickly made my way to the restroom outside the theater. As I reached the restroom entrance, something made me glance back. To my shock, I saw the man following me, his pace quickening as he closed in on me. Panic surged through me, and instead of entering the restroom, I turned back into the hallway, trying to distance myself from him as quickly as possible. As soon as I stepped out into the hallway, I saw my boyfriend rushing out of the theater, having noticed the man's suspicious actions and deciding to follow. The man, hearing the sound of my boyfriend's footsteps, suddenly changed direction. Instead of coming towards me, he dashed towards the exit. My boyfriend almost caught up with him, but the man managed to escape through the exit door into the night. We both felt shaken and decided not to return to the screening room. We reported the incident to the theater staff, hoping they would be vigilant for any similar suspicious behavior in the future. We never went back to that theater again, and this experience became one of the scariest memories of my life. I remember working a night shift during my high school years at a small cinema. That evening, the sky was filled with dark clouds, signaling an impending storm. The cinema only had 4 screening rooms, and my job was to sell tickets, snacks, and clean up after the last movie. Typically, I was alone during these night shifts, especially after hours. That night, after the final movie had ended, I made the usual closing announcement, reminding all guests that the cinema was closing and asking them to exit. With a loud clap of thunder, I locked the cinema's doors and began my routine of sweeping each screening room. As I was cleaning the 3rd screening room, the entire cinema was suddenly plunged into darkness. The storm had finally arrived, causing a power outage. The pitch-black environment made me uneasy, but I quickly adjusted my vision and continued my work. The screening room was eerily silent, with only the sound of the storm outside. Just as I was about to finish cleaning the 3rd room, I faintly heard the sound of a door softly opening and closing behind me. My heart started to race as I tried to discern whether someone had entered the room. To be sure, I raised my voice and said, "The cinema is closed. Please leave immediately." There was no response, but I clearly heard footsteps. The footsteps were approaching slowly, making a soft sound as they moved across the carpet. A chill ran down my spine. I quickly hid behind a row of seats near the exit, trying to remain as silent as possible. The footsteps wandered between the rows in front of me as if searching for something. I held my breath, my body tense, waiting for what would happen next. Time seemed to stretch on endlessly, each second longer than the last. Suddenly, the footsteps stopped. I thought the person might have given up searching. Just as I was about to relax, I heard them start walking toward my direction again. Just when I thought I was about to be discovered, the footsteps suddenly turned away from me. Seizing the opportunity, I quietly got up and crouched as I made my way to the exit. I gently opened the door, careful not to make any noise, and almost ran back to the front desk. I grabbed my phone and keys from the counter and dashed into the pouring rain, running towards the parking lot. Once inside my car, I immediately locked the doors and called the police, explaining what had happened. The police arrived quickly and thoroughly searched the cinema with their flashlights, but found no one. After that night, I always made sure to turn on every light before I started cleaning, working as quickly as possible to get out of the screening rooms. Although nothing strange ever happened again, that experience left a lasting impression on me. Even now, I still feel a chill when I think about it. One evening, my wife and I decided to watch a newly released horror movie. The film had received great reviews, and we were both excited. Since it was a weekend, the theater was almost full. After finding our seats, we noticed that a man who appeared to be alone was sitting next to us. He was wearing a hat and had a somber expression, but we didn't think much of it. Once the movie started, we became fully engrossed in it. Halfway through the movie, the man suddenly got up and left. I assumed he was just going to the restroom, so I continued watching the movie. A long time passed before he returned. When he did, I heard him breathing heavily, as if he had just undergone some intense physical activity. I glanced at him and saw sweat trickling down his forehead, and there was a hint of unease in his eyes. After the movie ended, we followed the crowd out of the theater. It was late by then, and the parking lot was sparsely populated. As we approached our car, I noticed that the man was also walking in the same direction. His steps appeared casual, but every time I looked back, he maintained the same distance from us. When we reached our car, we found that the area around us was completely deserted. As I opened the car door, I noticed that the glove compartment was oddly ajar, even though I distinctly remembered making sure all the car doors were locked before we left. Inside the glove compartment was an old, yellowed piece of paper. The paper had a strange symbol drawn on it, with rough and chaotic lines, resembling some sort of ancient mark. The sight of the symbol sent a shiver down our spines. As we drove away from the parking lot, I caught a glimpse of the man standing in the shadows near the edge of the trees, his eyes fixed intently on our car. His presence filled me with a sense of dread, as if he had been silently watching our every move. We didn't linger any longer and quickly left that unsettling place. Later on, we tried to find out what the symbol on the paper meant, but we couldn't find any relevant information. The experience left a deep impression on us, and whenever we think back to that night, an overwhelming sense of unease lingers in our minds.